copy of this? Or is there anyone who doesn't have this? Did you get one?
Yeah.
Okay. Tonight what I wanted to do was just talk about how to get you started writing a speech. Tonight we got to enjoy Philip's speech. It was really fun to listen to, right?
Yes.
And part of that is it's a really super polished speech because he's going to be speaking in Kaohsiung for the semifinals on Saturday. Yeah. Were it not polished, Division A would be in hot water. And the fact is that you notice with Philip's speech, this isn't an evaluation, but it's just a perfect opportunity. Philip's speech has a phrase that gets echoed throughout his story. Do you remember what it is? That's not the whole phrase. What's the whole phrase?
Be brave, look fear in the face,
do it anyway. It's that whole thing, because it's not just do it anyway. Just do it's Nike. It's about be brave, look fear in the face, do it anyway. He gives us a process. Now, this kind of process and this kind of phrasing, he didn't just wake up one morning and have it, I think. Actually, Philip's an incredibly talented person. He could very well have it. But I promise you, the majority of the strong speeches that we hear in Toastmasters come from people who write things down, who take versions of speeches, share it with people, and they start to modify and change it little by little. Now, most of us in Toastmasters, we don't take that much time to write our speeches, if we were super honest. Now, what usually happens is something like this. Your VP gives you a call or sends you a line at 2 in the morning. Okay, maybe that's not all of you, maybe that's just me. Anyway, and says, hey, next month can you give a speech? And you say, oh, next month, that's a month away. Yeah, no problem. 2 weeks pass, and your VP at a meeting says, hey, just a reminder, 2 weeks from now you're giving a speech, right? And you go, oh yeah, 2 weeks from now. Yeah, no problem. You get to the week of, you were very smart and you put a reminder in your Google Calendar that you have a speech in a week. And you say, okay, well I have to speak on Friday, it's Monday. I have 5 days. Hey, no problem. And then you get to Thursday, 9:30 p.m.
I have a problem.
I have a problem. And that's the majority of us. That's been me, and that's been several people. And I can't even say, oh, it's because I'm a native speaker. I do it in Chinese, too. The fact is that when we do it this way, it's like we're giving 7-minute table topics and not necessarily speeches. And for those of us who have been in Toastmasters long enough, we can kind of get away with it. Where your evaluator can be like, oh, that was pretty good. Maybe you made a couple of mistakes. But honestly, to take your speaking ability to the next level, it requires a higher level of polish. I think about one of my mentors, Lester, who's sitting in the back. Hi, Lester. Lester was somebody who was the very first person to ask me, did you write your speech down? And I said, oh, I wrote bullet points. And no, you really need to take the time, write out the whole speech. But why? Why write out the whole speech? What do you think? So you know your word count? So that you can have it on you? No, part of it is when you write the ideas down in whole, you get a better picture of what you're trying to say. And the second benefit is you have something that you can edit and modify. It is so hard to modify your grand masterpiece of a speech in your brain. Because everything's kind of murky in our minds. Because at the same time that I'm giving this workshop or giving a speech, I'm also thinking about the fact that I didn't do my laundry this weekend. And so I have 2 loads of laundry and I have some like food recycling to take. I'm thinking about so many things. And the speech gets lost in the process. All of a sudden, words and sentences that you put together in a beautiful way here come out like gobbledygook. But when you're writing it down, you start to really pin down your ideas and pin down the phrasing. So there are a couple of things I want to accomplish tonight. One, we want to talk about how to equip you to create a dramatic or inspirational speech. Now, there are lots of speeches that you can make. You can make informative speeches, persuasive speeches, humorous speeches, but since we're in the international contest season, I want to talk specifically about speeches that kind of move people or speeches that inspire people. Because those are the, if you go to Kaohsiung, who's going to Kaohsiung? Whoa. Nice. These are the kinds of speeches that you'll hear. So we're going to talk about those. Then I also want you to be able to walk out of this room and have some ideas for your next speech. That way, when your VP contacts you, you can really go, no problem, and it's actually no problem. And then I want to help you identify lessons that you can learn within a topic. Because frankly, all of you have really good stories. But what ends up happening to some of us is we have a good story, but we don't know what it means. For instance, someone came up and did scuba diving. Is that you? Who was it? You. Okay, sorry. You're both wearing blue shirts. Now, someone goes scuba diving and almost drowns. That's a story. But the lesson isn't necessarily clear because it takes a little bit of extra thought. I also almost drowned when scuba diving, so I really like Yoriko. And so what we do is we have our stories, but we also need to think about what did we learn and what can other people learn? And that requires some time, and that's why writing it down is important. And then also we want to talk about practicing writing from brainstorming to your first draft. Because what you'll find is you pick a topic, you start to jot down some ideas on a napkin or something like that, and then when you try to write it down, you open your computer, you click on that word processor, and you go, let me make coffee. You get back, you say, let me check my line. Because having a blank word processor, that blank document, can be really stressful. I can't tell you how many speeches started, my fellow Toastmasters, fellow friends and other guests. That's awkward too. And then I spend hours just trying to write one sentence. So let's start with dramatic speeches. Now, something to think about, and as you've gone through the contest season, I hope that you've had time to go to area and division contests and kind of see what other people do. Because you notice that for a contest that focuses a lot on moving people and inspiring people, you get tons of different speeches. I was at a contest where someone was like trying to sell water or like a product for his contest speech, and you're thinking, I think you're in the wrong room. So part of it is you're trying to create a speech that doesn't just hit people intellectually, but emotionally. I have some little blanks. I usually like to doodle while people talk. I don't know. So if you feel like you want to write something down, that's for you as well. So you have to appeal to your audience emotionally. There's some kind of feeling that's necessary. Most of the contests that I've seen, especially at the district level, people who win these contests, they have something that really hits people. Not just here, but here, emotionally. And so you need to be thinking about how do you kind of tug on heartstrings? How do you make people feel? This is where persuasive speeches and inspirational speeches really start to differ. When I'm trying to persuade you, I'm persuading you here to make the right decision. But inspiring you, I'm trying to move your emotions a certain direction. Now, you also have to provide some kind of call to action. Now, we say call to action so many times in Toastmasters, I swear I say it in my sleep, like, call to action. But it's so important because it helps people understand what to do with your speech. Because you can give a really heartfelt, you're crying on the stage, everyone's crying, but then there's no action afterward. And some of the most powerful speeches that you'll give are speeches that change people's lives and have them do something. So we've had a contest speech tonight. What does our contestant want us to do? Be brave. Face your fear and do it anyway. He's giving us a call to action. So not only did we get a really good, funny story with a mom, not only did we get a crushing story with a really mean bully, not only did we get university stories, Toastmaster stories. We get really good stories, but we get a lesson. We get a call to action. And what's amazing about that is, 1, we see the lesson that the speaker has learned. 2, we as the audience now have a lesson that we can implement. And that creates a stronger relationship between speaker and audience member. So as we're writing our speeches, we need to be thinking about, how am I appealing to people? How am I bringing people in? So for instance, in Philip's speech, he's bringing us in by having a common shared experience. We're all Toastmasters. Guess what we all do? Don't say breathe. We give speeches. And so his story about speeches is something that all of us in this room can relate to. Those of you who are not members, you can, who's the BPM here?
I am also.
Sign up.
Sign up here, baby.
Sign up. So when we look at contest speeches, we see the most successful ones are often dramatic topics. They're about death, disease, divorce. My mentor, Paul Sharp, calls this the 3 Ds of dramatic speaking. Somebody has cancer. We shouldn't joke about cancer, but it's true. Oftentimes, somebody's died, they have a disease, they got a divorce. It's something really deep, dramatic, like you're watching a soap opera. But the fact is that a good speech isn't limited to those kinds of topics. Everyday life events, right? We have this blank here. Everyday life events are perfect materials for these kinds of speeches. Now, everyday life events is a really broad category. School life, work life, traveling to another country. It doesn't necessarily have to be that everyday to where literally everybody has done it, because I've seen mothers who have talked about labor win contest speeches. At least half the people in that room cannot have that experience. So, it doesn't have to be like so common that it's 100% of the people, but common enough that we can all understand. So I'll give you an example. One of my favorite speeches I gave at a high school, and it was about scuba. It was going scuba diving and how I almost drowned because I totally panicked, and I managed to not drown, and thankfully I'm still here. Because my scuba coach, was constantly there. We're underwater. I feel like I'm freaking out. And it's just trying to tell me, calm down, breathe. You have your mouthpiece, your apparatus here. Breathe, calm down, I'm here. He was like, look at me. You're okay. Just. Now, that's not a common experience, but we all understand that going in the water and freaking out can lead to drowning. It's common enough that we can understand. And so, everyday life events are perfect materials for these kinds of speeches because we can relate. We can relate to them. We can all kind of understand and lock in to that kind of experience. Part of it is if you give something that's so far out that we can't really understand, it's hard to continue building that relationship, that connection between that speaker and audience. So these are some things to think about. Now, this is a workshop. That means you have to work too. So what I want you to do right now, I'm going to give everybody about 5 minutes. I want you to start thinking of topics that you can give. Everyday life events. So you'll notice on your page there are 2 columns, 2 spaces. So we have 1, moments where you challenged yourself. Moments where you challenged yourself. Second, the other side, something that happened over the last 3 weeks. And what I want you to do right now is I want you to take a moment and I want you to try to think of at least 2 things for both sides. Okay, 1 where you challenge yourself, and then something that happened recently. Okay, so we're gonna take just about 5 minutes. Now, what's gonna happen? In 3 minutes, you're gonna hear like I'm gonna knock on this desk. And that means it's time for you to share with your neighbors. Okay, so you can get in groups and share what topics you've had. And then what I want you to do from that is pick 1 or 2 topics that you think, ooh, these will make good speeches, okay? So step 1, take 3 minutes, write down some topics. Step 2, talk to your neighbors, pick 1 or 2 topics. Step 3, give yourself a pat on the back because you worked really hard. Okay?